The next item on the order paper is the debate on an urgent matter of national public importance in terms of Rule 130 in the name of Mr. J.S. Malema on the plight of the fees must fall activities. Honorable members, I've been informed that Honorable Dr. Ndlozi will take charge of the order in terms of Assembly Rule 93. Honorable, I now recognize you, Honorable Dr. Ndlozi.
Thank you, Chairperson of the House. Since the founding days of industrial colonial capitalism, this country has always hated, despised, and neglected the black youth. Already in the 1940s, the colonial regime had painted the black youth as delinquent, idle, and dangerous. The section of the black population that apartheid hated the most were the black youth, in particular, black youth activists. This image of the black youth as dangerous found renewed emphasis in the early 1990s following the return of the liberation movement. In those days, the black youth were called the lost generation, even by many in the liberation movement. Ask yourself, why was the ANC's first statement on the 1976 Soweto uprising was to condemn the students, call on all of them to go back to school? Why would the ANC's first reaction to the youth uprising be to condemn it in 1976? It is because essentially, the 1976 youth were above everything else an abandoned generation, abandoned by its elderly and parents. More than 30 years later, the ANC has sustained this very attitude towards the black youth, in particular the activists of the Fees Must Fall movement. Through its ministers, the ANC sent police to campuses, condemned students, painting them as being used by the CIA, and called on their arrest. To this day, ANC government continues to hold many of them in prisons 3 years after the Fees Must Fall movement in 2015. So we have to just ask a simple question. In fact, even after society accepted the moral power of Fees Must Fall demands, the security and disciplinary apparatuses of the ANC government still take pleasure in arresting, persecuting, and expelling student activists from the universities. We know of Amos Alma Monareng, a second-year informatics student at the University of Pretoria, arrested in 2016, is at home serving a 2-year house arrest sentence. Kaya Klegesha, Yolanda Janji, Surprise Silowe, Wandile Masango, Tulani Masilela, Mangaliso Sambwa, all expelled or in prison or facing trial, sent there by the ANC government. Many hypocrites will take platform and tell us about destruction of property, destruction or disruption of exams, infringement of individual conveniences, calling them individual rights, and the rule of law. They will speak of these ideals as fundamentals of our Constitution, but they deliberately ignore the hard truth that all these rights were brought by destruction of property, infringements of individual conveniences called rights, like the rights of white people to move freely in town at night without black people under apartheid, and breaking the rule of law. Even well-established democracies, celebrated democracies like America and France, in fact, worse for them, their democracies were not brought by protest or civil rights movements. They were brought by war. Men and women carrying guns sewn into killing people. Before you stand here today to tell us about the rule of law, think very hard and think very properly about this constitution that you're going to defend here, that it is the constitution fundamentally brought by people who had gone to war, who had gone to soar, and make sure that they come into the country and liberate all of us by breaking apartheid laws. Had you focused on your responsibility to secure a future for the black youth, there wouldn't have been a Fees Must Fall. Instead, you came here to Parliament to sleep, filling your bellies with resources that you were looting in state coffers. Bloody sleepists. Had you come here to work, fees must fall would have not happened. Had you come here to become the parents whose role and responsibility is at all times to secure a future for the young, you would have known that you have to prepare universities so that they are accessible, particularly for the black talented youth. Instead, you came here to sleep. We're therefore calling on all charges and sentences against fees must fall activists to be dropped with immediate effect, particularly by the universities that have expelled all these activists. Let all those expulsions fall. Allow the children to come back and focus on their studies in the attainment of education. The same way you freed Nelson Mandela, who was arrested in possession of explosive and guns, who had sworn as an MK commander to kill people. The same way you were willing to release him from prison, calling him a freedom fighter, you must free all fees must fall activists from prison unconditionally. They never killed anybody. They never tried to kill anybody. They were fighting for access to education. Stop criminalizing them. Let them go back to school and attain education. These are not criminals like Duduzane Zuma, Mtutuzi Manana, or Andile Lungisa, or potential criminals like some ministers here who are serving in the cabinet of Tumamina. They are freedom fighters who were simply seeking the attainment of economic freedom in their lifetime. That is why the EFF is the only organization that has assisted them to fight in all the legal battles that they face.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Mpumlwana, you are next.